It's a pleasure to be here. So to more practically tell you about time banking, using our example there from Helsinki Time Bank. Helsinki Time Bank in Finnish there, it's spelled Aikapankki, and you see our logo there. So the principles are basically like any time bank globally. Members of a time bank, they give and exchange services. We also have goods in the time bank against time. And the principle is that everybody's time, everybody's work, everybody's needs is really of equal worth. So with that, of course, comes the principle of reciprocity and equality. They are the core principles that we are really believing everybody has something to give and to take. And as written there, for us, the unit of account, so to speak, what we call time credits, it's called a tovi. Tovi is 1 hour of somebody's work done. Tovi means a moment. It's a name that we chose together with our membership. Now, worldwide, there are thousands of time banks who are operating on these basic principles. But then again, every time bank has its own development path, and every time bank is different, depending on the envisioning, the goals, depending on visions about the state and autonomy. Every time bank will have its own story, and so we also have our own story. In Britain, has a long history of time banking. Their time banks are typically registered as charities. They are certain associations officially registered, which are meant to take care of certain social problems in certain areas, for instance. In France, there is a very large time banking network, La Corderie, coming from Canada. There, for instance, it's not a charity, but in its principle, it's already very clearly specified that we are not doing any professional, you are not doing any professional services in the time bank, but everybody can be practicing their skills in the time bank. With this then typically comes that the time bank will not be seen as having to do with the real economy, as if it would be something non-economic. Whereas for us, it has been much more interesting to look at the time bank as a complementary community currency, which actually can be a tool for us to look differently at economy and take back a part of that economy discussion as being something that we can all be taking part in, and that is where solidarity economy framing has been so useful to us, but I'll come back to us. So going back to the practice, so we started our time bank 7 years ago now, and if I talk about services, because of course always will ask, so what is being exchanged? Let us say that it can go from childcare, typically mentioned, to haircutting, to designing of web services, to helping somebody with very difficult, complicated local languages like Finnish. Anything basically that you could imagine, and a common denominator could be to say that this is about real needs, which is of course a very core thing of our discussion about solidarity economy. We want economy to be about people's real needs and to start the discussion from there. In these 7 years, some more than 3,000 people have joined our time bank, but by far not everyone has exchanged. Let's say that a third has done 1 or more exchanges. And in total, we have exchanged, it's now soon coming to some 30,000 hours in the time bank. But just to say, so we are not an association, we're not officially registered. This has been a people's process, this has not been a project. There's not a single euro on this experience. And we were growing until we ran into. This is just an example of why do people, because that's of course also asked who is in the time bank. And there are some very obvious answers to that. Obviously, operating in a time bank means that for whatever particular reason, you will have a certain amount of time available to be operating on that basis. Therefore, when we were earlier talking about things like degrowth, you could imagine that something like a time bank would be a perfect way to be twinning with either concepts of degrowth or, for instance, concepts of a basic income. But so in terms of why would you want to be on board, these were the, this was the results of a small ring that we did in a membership meeting with some 17 members, and the reasons can really go from, I would like to get to know my neighbor, I would like to get to deal with people of a different age, I would like to, unlike normally in voluntary work, actually in the time bank, I can be doing more interesting tasks, because what I can do as a volunteer is not limited only by what a certain organization will be giving to be done. Two reasons that I'm interested in the building up of another kind of currency. The big banks, the power of the big banks was already brought up. I really want to be part of the building of an alternative. And basically, we realize that it's not a problem. If for some people, certain of these reasons will be very far-fetched, actually there can be a wonderful coexistence of people being together in this project, and also actually working through an entire pedagogical process of what can it be when we start to exchange services on the basis of time. So in practice, I'm showing just a front slide of my account there in the time bank. Well, you are seeing Finnish and English there. We are a registered exchange group, so to say, in the Community Exchange Systems network. And so when you register online, basically you get an account number, you get a password, you'll be able to enter into your account as if into a bank. And members will then on themselves be able to see what kind of services are there being offered. And you can yourself also put there on your account what are the kind of things that you would like to do in the time bank. When you start to engage in the time bank, you don't need to supposedly first earn any credits before you could be getting some help yourself. We have put the rules so that there is a plus 50 and a minus 50 limits somehow. So it means, and the logic is also there because when we were talking about what is money, if you want to see the time credits as a certain kind of currency in any case, you could say that this is simply an accounting system. It's a system in which everything is zero. You go up 1 hour, another account is going to be going down 1 hour, so it's a mutual credit system. The whole system is zero. Plus 50, minus 50, and then at the moment when you are going to the minus 50, the question is not why have you been going so far below zero. The question is much more what can we do for you so that the time bank would be working better for you. So this is just an overview of in the whole system that we are operating on, there are time banks and local currencies. Everything is convertible between each other. So this is the largest system globally. This was developed in South Africa in a small suburb there. Since then it has grown. As you can see, close to 800 groups today in some 80 countries. And we also, for instance, I mean there would be so many questions, but perhaps you can ask later if you have any specific questions. This network, it also, there is no monetary contribution from us. We don't pay anything, but it is so that 1% of the volume of our exchanges of toddies will be going to South Africa as a contribution for the upkeep of the system. So this is a very genuine alternative building process in which also the upkeep is happening via the complementary currencies. And after we started our time bank, some 40 other time banks were set up in Finland. So meaning that the proposal was liked. There was a lot of interest.
Is that globally or just in Finland?
No, this is globally. What I was showing before, in this network.
Exchange
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
If you from
Yes.
Finland go to
Yes.
the US,
Yes.
you
Yes.
find a bank and you do that.
Yes, yeah, that's in the same way. And you could also think in terms of like has been happening. Somebody was in another city earning credits and was then able to give it to more elderly parents in another city, so that they were able to get help that they needed, although he could not be present there or closer by his parents. These are just some of the examples of what you'd imagine that could be
So you can
possible.
trade your credits to
Yeah. So this is a typical way of visualizing a time bank. You can imagine people are exchanging services, and you can imagine the ring that then can be growing. I was already telling we are not a registered association. So how our governance, so to speak, happens is that we have an open Helsinki Time Bank group to which any member at any moment can be joining. And the idea is that we prepare what are the next things happening in front of us. All bigger decisions get made with the whole time bank by way of voting online or asking for comments, feedback. And that is actually a very exciting part of this whole process. It's a process of people coming together to determine that we have our time credits, which has some certain basic values, but what more do we want to enable in our economy, so to speak, that we are building via the time bank. And it is for that the framework of solidarity economy became very important to us. Because then to think of economy, I just want to highlight what was for us basically exciting of why we took solidarity economy framework to us. It's first of all the fact that solidarity economy wants to demystify what is the whole discussion of economy about, and to bring it back to being a discussion of everybody and for everybody, and starting from people's needs, as I was referring to earlier. And that actually when we put on the light lenses, so to speak, we can be identifying around us all kind of layers of economic activity or actors which are having at their core other values than profit making as their main aim. And it's there that the beauty of the word solidarity, if you take it from there, comes in the sense that it really wants to address power, and it wants to go beyond solidarity in the terms of having empathy for somebody or liking or doing your best for something. It really wants to put on the table that the relationships that are being built in our workplaces and through the things that we produce, they're really about direct democracy, about autonomy, about ecology, and about justice. So it's a very value-based approach, and that basically also gave us the impetus to also define more what is our time bank about. At first, 6 years ago, didn't want to have anything additional added to what is it that we're about than the basic principles. But then it was actually so that a larger company wanted to start an exchange rink, a large cosmetic firm wanted to start a small exchange rink in our time bank, and it remembers that we're saying, but wait a minute, what is this actor doing in the time bank? So it matters. Where is it that I'm putting my time? The time credits that are circulated, it matters what happens. So we did a workshop in which we charted down our values, and we started writing this kind of principles document, which can be found online. But here just the basic definition about what we define ourselves to be about. On the one hand about communal culture, but on the other hand also about furthering another kind of economy. Yeah, and these were, we don't need to stand still by all of this. These were the values that we came from. But this was a process that took more than 3 months with our members, because it gave a lot of heated debate. But this is the beauty. This is the beauty of the process, because you're creating something, you want to put another proposal on the table, and you want to have it worked out with your members, and you want people to feel ownership of it. And so that's what we did. So these values and those principles and that definition became the basis for which actors would be joining our time bank. So now I mean the organized actors. When individuals sign up, you sign up to our charter. When an organization, like for instance a food cooperative or for instance a cafe like this or a space or whomever, whatever wants to be joining. It is also asked from you that you have heard these principles again, but also you give a kind of an intention about what is it that you want to do in the time bank and what is it that you hope to be receiving, and the actors are approved in a membership meeting, so that and put online beforehand so that everybody can see who wants to be joining. So the idea is that we step by step know what we're doing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm very quickly going over this. I just wanted to show, this is a nice circle by Ethan Miller. I don't know if it's a familiar solidarity economy writer to you. It's a way of visualizing our economy, the different sectors of economy, mapped in there the different kind of forms of solidarity economy actors. And you could, what is often commented that something overlooked is often the issue of money and finances. If you want to come to other economy building, we also need to address financing, as we were also earlier talking about. The time bank is one tool. You could imagine that there are all different kind of instances that could be profiting in different way from being connected to a time bank. Or then perhaps also another local currency, or even a national parallel currency. That's not the issue. I mean, you can personally also feel it if you want to talk about scale or not scale. You can also see this much more as being crystals, which can be connected in different way, and in that way are structurally challenging also at large how we are organizing our economy. And now about that, what we all want to talk about. So taxation. So we knew, of course, that being in Finland and of course welfare state, we always were asked about taxation, and we always wanted to talk about taxation, and we are completely for taxation. And therefore we developed an own proposal already years back through a process that was very long and even more heated debate than the Principles Charter, as you might imagine, and I can tell you I have cried, but we came to what I'm very happy about, the proposal of a time tax. So in practice, how it goes, two things. So what happened is you perform a service for, no, I perform a service for you, yes. Always in the time bank it is so that if I have performed a service, I'm going to remember, so I'm going to take from her account a tobi, right? If it was 1 hour. So I take from you the tobi. I've for 1 hour done something. But it will not be exactly 1 tobi. What happens is that from her side, there will be going a 2% of the 1 tobi, which will be going to our general administration account, which we take care of the upkeep of the time bank. So for instance, I'm a person who is involved in development of organized membership meetings, or I go to do something. There are no euro salaries or anything, but you can get remunerated in tobis, which is coming from that central account. Now for me, who has done the service, I don't get the whole tobi, but 2% of my tobi will go in the form of a time tax to one of the solidarity economy actors that I have chosen in the time bank. For me, it is towards a local food cooperative. So it's like a tax in time going to an actor in the time bank. Our proposal would then be that it could also be, for instance, public actors that time bank people would like to see taking part in our time bank. For instance, your local public daycare, or for instance, a library agency, or anything. If it is an actor that we approve of the things that it is doing, you could imagine it also joins the time bank. It could be receiving time tax, and with that time tax, it can use to get help from the time bank.
But they have to be members of...
They will become a member as well.
Yeah.
So it's part of a discussion that wants to talk about the fact that if we have complementary currencies, we can very well talk about taxation, but let that be paid in the complementary currency according to the values of the complementary currency. I think you can pay taxes, local taxes with Bristol pound, but I think then it gets converted to sterlings, meaning it can still be funding the war, etc., etc. This idea would be to make a circle in which we take back something of the discussion of taxation, not everything. The whole nation is not going to work on a time bank. Always these questions get asked, but you're not suggesting that this is not the point. This is about, in a small way, addressing the issue of the public sphere, of not perhaps a privatizing, but more of a commodifying of this public sphere, of enabling people to be more present in the spaces and places you would like to be and what makes sense to you. I didn't actually tell that we had a taxation guidelines coming out in Finland, which made it so that professional services received in the time bank officially should be, you should pay taxation on them according to the value they would have in the market, even though they are not in the market. So this is a very unique happening.
That's what I was asking, because
I know, I forgot it, yeah. So that was, this is our proposal. We're trying to come to pilots. In the meantime, we have been on national TV once again, and we have been getting these guidelines coming out, which is of course impacting us negatively. Thank you.